Okay, so welcome back to episode 76 of the Next Door Neighbors podcast, a podcast where you are basically having dinner with your spouse and you're listening in on another couple having a conversation next door or at the next table. And what'd you think about that?
What do you mean?
What do you think of that statement?
I like it. I think it should be our next description.
It wasn't an original one for us. We heard it from Jess Wright, which Jess is the vice president of marketing for Ryobi Power Tools. And we were just at an event in Florida where they're showcasing some of the new lawn care stuff, their Whisper series that they're coming out with. And we were just talking around the table, and Jess was like asking about the podcast, and he articulated that way, and I thought it was such a clever way.
Yeah. He's like, it's like you're sitting at dinner and you just overhear another couple's conversation, and it's like, that's what our conversations are. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly it.
That's exactly it. It's a really great way of looking at it. And what's interesting to me is those conversations are always interesting, right? Like even if they're, because you kind of go like, where are they coming from? What's the background?
Yeah.
Like what's their life dynamic?
Yeah. And it's like, you kind of want to like keep listening, but it's like almost, I like that because it makes a person, I hope the listeners feel like they're right here with us.
Yeah, just hanging out.
Listening.
So we did a trip to Florida. It was like a one-day trip, Thursday to Friday. Thursday was just like one day of full travel.
Which is a long time because there are no direct flights from Boise anywhere to the East Coast.
To the East Coast, correct.
So it's a long day of travel.
Yeah. Airports are such an interesting thing. Like you have an ability to like take a random sample of everybody all over the world, especially in like an international airport. And I don't know if there's people out there who are better at flying than others, but I can't imagine. Like I know that stand-up comedians, they do the road. So meaning they go like 1 or 2 days in each city or state, and they'll plan out like 14 days of travel like that. How do you make that work? Is it something that do certain people have a knack for it, for traveling like that? Living?
Yeah, I think so. Or you just get, I don't know if you could ever get used to it, but I think there are some people who enjoy it more than others. I feel like I used to enjoy it when I was like single, and it was like the thrill of like going somewhere. Now it's like, I know I'm going to sleep horribly on the plane. I know I'm going to have like neck pain after those seats. I know I'm going to lose either like in 2 hours if we're flying on the East Coast. The time change is going to be weird. My bowel movement's going to be irregular. All of it. Yeah, when I was like young and single, none of that like crossed my mind.
What was your bowel movement situation when you were single?
Better.
Was it better? Interesting. It's yeah, I can't imagine being a comedian or somebody who's
and then you miss your kids too,
or somebody who, because I've heard of this. I've heard of people who they have huge responsibilities within companies, but they decide not to live in the state that their job is. So I've heard of people flying in every single day.
Can't do that.
Every single day. I'm guessing that's only like a 1 hour flight or something like that, which I get.
I mean, yeah, 1 hour is not super bad, but it's like, it's the whole having to get a car or whatever, Uber to the airport, go through security, wait for your flight, board, wait for everybody to get on the plane. That's like a whole process. It's not just an hour. You're already wasting probably 3.
Yeah. It would probably be a different story if you're flying private.
Yeah.
And
that would be
apparently
different.
To fly private, if I remember somebody quoted, because you can basically rent one of those like jets that, with pilots and all that stuff. And I think it's like $20,000.
Yeah.
A flight.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
30 to 40, or 20 to 30. Yeah.
Yeah. 20 to 30, depending where you're going.
So no biggie.
No biggie. I don't know. I've always wanted to try it, but at the same time, how much better can you get? In fact, I'm willing to argue that it's a scarier flight because it's a smaller airplane.
Yeah. You can feel the turbulence more.
I remember taking Jack on that little seaplane excursion where it sits like 6 people in this thing, and you're in this like, those seaplanes, and that whole thing is like shaking.
It's scary.
And I've heard of like helicopters. I've never been on a helicopter, but I heard helicopters are like scary as well because it's just a lot of, you're a small little egg
loud.
that's being thrown around.
And it's so loud.
Yeah.
Like you can't like talk to somebody while you're sitting in a helicopter.
Yeah, I mean, they have those little walkie-talkies on the headsets, but it's still not the greatest thing in the world.
Crazy. Yeah. So the flights, yeah. So it was a full day of travel, and then we ended up getting to our hotel a little bit later than we thought. So I had like 30 minutes to get ready, and then it was like straight to dinner.
Straight to dinner, yep. It was cool. It was cool to see everybody. It was cool to see some. This is
like the first event, well, at least
in 2 years for sure.
For you too, yeah.
For sure. Well, yeah. I mean, since COVID, yeah. So Workbench, which is a conference for makers and YouTubers and social media people, it's like a maker community. It goes on every year. Obviously, it didn't happen in 2020, and it didn't happen in 2021. So 2022 is the first one that they just launched. And it was happening the same time in Atlanta. And it's wild. It's wild to like think that there's been no events like that.
I know. Now people are like starting back. 2 years. It doesn't even feel like that long.
Do you know what's weird? As soon as we came back, I went to the local hardware store here, I think. Well, I went to actually both Lowe's and Home Depot. And you know how before people generally didn't wear a mask? Like, you know, when we got to the point like as society where they're like, okay, there's like, they're not as strict about it, but the employees always wore masks. I don't know if maybe it's an Idaho thing, but there was no employees that were wearing masks.
Didn't you read the CDC?
Oh, you're the one that read it to me.
Yeah. I think it was like they're like relaxing all the mask laws. I don't know what the details are, like how, what that means. Mm-hmm. But I think that's why employees aren't wearing them anymore.
Oh,
yeah.
That makes a lot more sense. It's kind of felt normal a little bit.
Maybe we're getting there.
Oh, well, I mean, this is as close as we get. It's funny. This is more of like backpedaling, but the CDC, I think, or whoever came out with this whole like nuclear disaster thing, like what to do in a case of like a nuclear blast. They're modifying it to like COVID standards. So they're saying like go to a basement, go to the corner of a basement, and then it says like if you're among strangers or other people that are not from your family, try to separate yourself 6 feet.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
In the middle of a nuclear attack. And this is a real thing out there. That's the wildest thing to me.
Make sure you're separated in the 2x4 basement.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in
crawl space.
In the opportunity that the world would end from a catastrophic blast, make sure you don't die with COVID.
Now be aware.
As the world ends, make sure you're double, triple, quadruple vaccinated. That's funny. I thought it was very silly. All right, guys, we're going to take a quick break from this podcast and thank the sponsors of today's podcast, Flex Seal. Now, who else is ready for winter to be over? I know that I can't only be the only one. I also know that nobody's looking forward to the damage revealed during spring thaw. It's true. All that expansion and contraction. Good thing Flex Seal has a complete line of products ready to take on winter wreckage, both big and small, quickly and affordably in and around your home. I can tell you from personal experience that when you're ready to repair winter damages and start spring renewed and refreshed, there's no better or more reliable way to get your repairs done than with Flex Seal family of products. Seriously, Flex Seal products are powerful, durable, easy to use, efficient, and affordable. From repairing weather-worn gutters to cracked foundations, leaks in basements, vehicle damage, and so much more, it's a really good idea to have plenty of Flex Seal products on hand. So with spring being right around the corner this year, when you need to make repairs from winter damage, use products you can trust to work. The Flex Seal family of products. So here's what you're going to do. Head over to their website, www.getflexseal.com, and order everything you need to repair winter damages and get ready for spring today. Now, let's get back into this podcast.
So let me ask you this.
Yes.
This might be a stupid question.
No stupid questions.
If there is a nuclear attack,
okay,
does the basement protect you from that?
So no, yes and no. So if you're within, I looked up some of these like simulations that they run, like like what would happen to a small city like Manhattan or something. And the idea is like if that nuclear blast with anything within like 6 miles or something like that, like 6-7 miles, no, everything is just like deteriorized. Like
even if you're in a bunker,
it doesn't matter. It's gone, right?
Wow.
I'm sure it'll create a hole in the ground too. And then I think the basement part is more along the lines as there's nuclear radiation that air pushes out, like, kind of think about it as fumes, right, after something. Well, that's super destructive to you, obviously, right? It stays on your clothes, it gets in your skin, you inhale it, like you essentially you die later. Yeah. I think it's weeks or something like that. But I think the basement, what that does is it allows for you to get underground, that the wind carries it over the house and out, as opposed to, I think that's the argument.
So if you're,
And the basement part is also, again, there is that level of like the imminent danger of like explosion, and you're deteriorate, right? So, and then after that, there's also whatever distance where debris and everything is flying at you. So that's another thing that the basement would be protecting you by being underground. If, windows, doors, and concrete is flying across, by being underground, obviously it goes over you. So those just a few little things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
We need a basement.
I'd love a basement. I used to want just a basement just for the ability to like get away, or send the kids down there with their friends, so they're not like annoying you, like being loud. But now it's like, oh, we need a basement. Apparently during the Cold War, there was a lot of people had basements. That was like part of the structural practice. And then obviously times have changed.
Not a lot of basements here in Idaho.
I wonder why. I wonder if that's like a flooding thing, right? Because Idaho is pretty flat, and if one of those dams fail, like it's maybe underground. But at the same time, it could just be, people still have basements here.
They do, just not like.
I think it's just an older design.
I think it's more common in certain areas of the country.
Basements are definitely coming back. I saw some.
Did you ever have a house with a basement?
No, never.
We only had one.
I've only lived in 2 houses my entire life. Well, as when I was with my parents, like we growing up, yeah. So, nothing. Did you guys have one?
We had a house that had a basement.
Is it the nicer house?
It was like our movie room.
Oh, movie room. Yeah. Well, that's a huge thing from like benefits of basements is being able to do that.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. But we never really used it.
Well, that was my follow-up question. The movie rooms always sound so cool, but then how easy are they to really use for be like, I'm going to go watch something? Like, I feel like you have to turn on the projector. You got to turn on the connection to the thing. Then you got to turn on the little, kind of, what do they call them? Those, they look like VCRs, but they plug in like the sound, the speakers to it, and the amp. Isn't that called the amp? It's called the amp, right? It might be. Yeah. So like,
I think nowadays they make it pretty user friendly. Yeah. Like, I think there was like one button.
Really?
Yeah. And then it's like, I think it was hooked up to like even the TV, so you could watch actual like just TV from the projector, like downstairs. Yeah. And then movies or whatever you wanted.
Right. Yeah. So I knew back then people would have like 4 TV
The only
remotes.
thing I'm wondering is like, in terms of like a disaster, nuclear disaster coming, basements don't work for that radiation if you don't have like some kind of solid door, right? Because it will still.
Well, it's not necessarily a solid door.
Because we didn't even have a door in our basement.
Some of it will get through, and keep in mind you have a furnace, let's say, in your garage, that things will suck in there. There's a filter,
right?
But some of it will get through. But is it like a lethal amount? I think
you're just
Again, I'm just spitballing these ideas because, to be honest, historically, I think the last time they detonate, I don't remember if it was the atomic bomb or was it a nuclear bomb that they detonated. It was like 1950 or something like that, 1960. They dropped it in Hiroshima. I think they dropped it there, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and then I think there was like one more other place. But so there's not a whole ton of like, how do you prevent this, right? There's a lot of aftermath of, but I think that's your best thing that you can do. Not necessarily you'll be 100% safe.
But if you want to take the precautions, I guess.
There's even arguments about bunkers. Like I think I've read some kind of, not an article, but a little like animation where the bunkers are not really the most ideal thing. They're basically a basement. But the idea is that, well, what would happen if there was a flood? What would happen if there's a fire? Well, you're trapped in this thing. So there's a little bit different argument. So what the people are saying is, you want a place that has elevation so you can see from the top down, kind of make a plan from there. But it's funny.
Depends what's happening.
Yes, it's interesting that before we never. Well, okay, let's back up a little bit, because by the time this episode comes out, I think we'll be already 4 days since this happened. So on Thursday when we fly out, they just reported on the news that Ukraine was invaded by Russia. Multiple missiles were launched.
Was that on Thursday or Friday?
It was great question. Thursday, because Thursday morning when you and I woke up at 4 to go, it was
all over
already
the news.
It was already a few hours on the thing.
Right.
And so that was and so people were trying to evacuate Kiev, the capital of Ukraine. Have you been to Kiev? Were you born in Kiev?
No. So those of you who are new or don't know, I was actually born in Ukraine, moved to the States when I was 3. I was not born in Kiev. We were born in I was born 2 hours south. It's a little town called Pervomaisk, and it's a pretty small city. It was known for, I'm trying to remember, my parents told me, they made something there.
I
think it was Hushonka.
Really?
So which is sweet and condensed milk. Yeah. I don't know if they had a factory there, but I think that's, unless I'm making this up, I'll have to research it now.
Oh, you're trying to flex on people. Be like, oh, we make condensed milk. Like, no, you don't.
Yeah. I believe my mom told me that. And it's about the halfway mark between Kiev and what's the south, the city that's south, very south of Ukraine.
Very south of Ukraine?
Odessa. So it's between, if you look it up on the map. So I was born there, moved after the Soviet Union broke up
in
1990. So we moved in 1992. And that was everything. And so I think that was which is
by the way,
crazy.
The way you said that the sequence of events made it sound like because the Soviet Union broke up, you're like, so then we decided to move to the United States.
Well, kind of, because
you missed the Soviet Union?
No, because Ukraine, after the Soviet Union, became its own country. That's when they gained independence in 1991. Isn't that crazy?
I had no idea.
They were not an independent country before that, which is crazy to think. That's not that long ago.
They were part of the USSR.
So I didn't realize that either until I was reading something, and I was like, that's right. So I think it was July when I'll go back to this, but actually when I was... So the country is only 25
or 20 years old?
1991 was not 20 years ago.
No, or 20. Hold on. What am I saying?
30.
30 years old. Sorry.
Yeah. It feels like in the 90s or 20 years ago. Yeah.
I didn't carry the one.
It's not that old. So I think my parents left, first of all, just fear of what's going to happen next. Are we going to go back to, communism and everything that was going on? And I think also the economy from going from communism and trying to rebuild, the economy was just
So that was their motivation of moving, right? I
think so. I think they were also, everybody was scared and didn't know what to do. And they knew America was the land of the free. That's where you have opportunities. And they basically left kind of as refugees. Because they're coming from so much, I don't know, craziness that was going on there.
And you were at that point were 4?
I was 3 when we moved, barely 3. And then my sister was 4, And then we moved to Portland, Oregon, when we first moved, and we had a little bit of family here. And another thing, I think when you left, you had to have either family or a sponsor living in the States.
That's how when we moved in there.
Otherwise, you can't. So you had to go to the Ukrainian government, get a visa, and they were denying people. It wasn't easy to come here. My parents had a lot of friends that were denied and said, no, you can't leave.
Even though they had family or
I'm not sure if they had family, but my uncle came without having family here, but they somehow found a sponsor.
How wild is it, the fact that you would have your own country not let you leave?
I know. Isn't that crazy?
So
crazy
wild.
That they're no, you can't leave. My parents, got lucky and were able to leave. For them, they really wanted, especially having family here, my uncle told them, oh yeah, this place is amazing, you know, so many opportunities, so much freedom here. And so we ended up moving. And my parents still have family there. So my dad's brother still lives there and his family. And then they're like, you know, extended family, like cousins and stuff, my parents. And then
now
they
still
really...
in Pervomaisk, not in Kiev, right?
Not in
so
Kiev.
2 hours away from Kiev.
And then they actually have really good friends who planted a church there that live in Kiev. So they're like a, you know, like kind of like Boise, and then you have like the outlying cities,
right? Meridian and Garden Valley.
It's like the same. They live in Kiev, but it's like a little city outside of the big Kiev metropolitan. Yeah. So, and they're in it. Yeah. And so my mom talked to them, and they're having.
Yeah. Go ahead. Finish that.
They're just, everybody's really scared.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. Rightfully so.
Yeah.
So are people spending the night at the churches?
I think so. People are trying to find refuge in churches because it's like they have nowhere else to go. People are in like underground, I think bunkers, whatever they are. Have you seen those photos and videos of people having babies in like basements because they can't be at the hospitals right now?
Oh, interesting. So are the people that are seeking refuge in the churches because their houses were blown up, or is it because they were like, we don't want to stay in
I
proximity?
think it's maybe both. I think if anybody's watched obviously the news, a lot of people fled the ones that live in the city of Kiev because there were apartment buildings being shot at and blown up. So it's like, I think a lot of people left either because their own, you know, housing was shot at, or they're just scared, which I would leave too. If I was living in that city, I would not stay there.
Yeah, because you're essentially, because what the military strategy is, you want to attack the capital and then go seize the capital, right? And then now the city is yours. And if you're living in the capital, you're essentially, or the city that is the capital, essentially you are living in the hottest zone.
The hot spot, yeah.
You're the bullseye that every rocket is trying to launch.
Yeah, so that's why everybody's leaving. There's like, it's insane. And I think also the reason people are maybe fleeing to churches and these buildings, I think people want to stay together too. Nobody wants to be alone during this time.
100%. There's a sense of like camaraderie, community, and some people putting you at ease.
Yeah.
I mean, a group is better than one for sure.
And then be able to like think of stuff together, you know, come up with strategies, ideas, whatever you need to. But going back to that, I was born in Ukraine. Where were you born?
I was born in Bryansk, Russia.
Yeah.
So Bryansk is exactly square dab in the middle between Moscow and Kiev.
Oh, really?
So it's south east. So it's south. So because Ukraine is southeast of Russia, it's basically in a direct line from Kiev to Moscow, and Bryansk is right in the middle.
Interesting. Yeah. So Thursday, we were like reading the news, and I mean, we've been hearing for the last few weeks, maybe, if not more, that something's gonna happen.
Yeah, they're talking about military drills. Yeah. They're just doing.
Everybody kind of knew, but you know, in like the back of your mind is like, maybe it is just nothing, maybe. And so like when it actually happens, it just felt so close to home because I was born there, even though the country itself doesn't feel like home. Even when I went to visit, when I was 19 years old when I went back.
So what year is that? That's
2009.
2009. So what did it feel like in 2009 when you were there? You were in Kiev.
So we first went to Lithuania, which is a beautiful country too.
That's Latvia, right?
It's like by Latvia. Lithuania is its own country.
Oh, okay.
Similar like that Slavic culture. It's beautiful there. And then we stayed there for like 2 weeks, a week maybe, and then went to Ukraine, stayed in Kiev for 2 weeks. And we were like right in the city. We walked around. It was fun to visit, but it definitely did not feel like home.
No, of course. Okay.
Because it was not my home. Yeah.
Right.
I was born in the country, but it wasn't, I've lived in America all my life. Yeah.
So was the city kind of like up and coming and developing, or
Oh yeah, it's like any big city you can think of. Everybody's walking around down the street. They have this cool system where everything's like underground.
monorail system? Yeah.
No, like there's tunnels. Like you walk.
Oh.
You walk underground.
Why? What's the reasoning?
I think
that?
it's just traffic control. Like it's easier.
Oh.
There's so many people in the city, so they even have like stores and little like shops underground.
Oh,
it's so cool. Yeah. I thought that was so cool.
So those are the
like,
tunnels that then you're talking about that they're probably hiding in, right? Underground.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
where they're walking through. Which
That's
totally
where
makes
they're all
sense,
hiding,
right? That's
yeah.
essentially your not bunker, your basement.
Mm-hmm. So it's like that's probably where everybody is, and it's I don't know if that was like purposeful or if that was. I always thought it was just like to control traffic because there's so many people walking around everywhere.
Which is interesting because New York has the same idea, but it's with subways.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's a little different,
And then Europe, the rest of like Europe has the monorail system that it's all subways underneath.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never heard of just truly just for you to walk either on top or below.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, and it's very confusing because you like forget which way you're going. And then they have the diagonal crosswalks.
Oh,
have you seen those?
I think so.
So instead of like you have that 4 square.
Yes.
Instead of walking this way and then this way doing an L, you actually just walk right across diagonally.
Huh.
Which I don't know how that works because at some point they all have to be stopped, I guess.
Right, but it also seems like the highest opportunity to get hit by a car because now you have 2 different directions simultaneously that are.
Yeah, interesting. They don't have them like everywhere. I think they just have them like in certain areas. Because I think that when they have tons of cars driving around, you can't do that. It's not safe.
And these are not the countries that they're super strict with those stoplights.
Right, I know.
Right.
There's just cars everywhere. They're like back to back, bumper to bumper all the time. But I feel like the major streets they actually close off during certain times of the day because there's so many people walking around. It's like a big city.
I think those videos you see that go viral with these like crazy car accidents.
That's like there.
Or these trucks side swiping and then I think that's all like in these like European, Russian.
Yeah. It's beautiful. The city itself is beautiful. There's like beautiful parks.
Was it pretty? You liked it?
Yeah. It's very pretty.
Because the images like the now, like not even like obviously right now there's ruins, but like before that even happened, they would show footage of like the city center. It looked like a less impressive version of like you going to Madrid or something like that. Or
I don't think it's like it's beautiful, but it's not. It doesn't have like the landmarks that some of these more popular cities do. Like you go to Paris, it's like the Eiffel Tower. Yeah, and so
which you can't hold a lot against them because they've only been a country since
1990, 1991.
Yeah,
but they actually Ukraine has its own Instagram page. The country.
The country of Ukraine has an Instagram. Is there a
Ukraine.
lot of followers?
Ukraine.ua. I think it probably does now. But they actually, when everything happened, they posted this like time lapse, but like video of all these cool things in Ukraine. Yeah, you should watch it.
It's ruined.
No, just like how beautiful it is. Like a travel thing of like these are all the beautiful things that are found in Ukraine, and it was actually really cool to watch because I had never been really outside of Kiev. I mean, visiting. Why? So I don't know. And this is embarrassing, but I didn't even know what the flag meant. I
don't know what the Russian flag means.
The Ukrainian flag is blue at the top and yellow at the bottom. And the blue is for the blue skies because it's, I guess, known for having really blue skies. And then the bottom is known for their wheat fields. Wheat fields, yeah. Which I think I did know that. And then the blue symbolizes the color itself symbolizes something. I can't remember what, but the yellow symbolizes joy.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so I just learned that too. So I feel like
you're doing like your own
research, which I'm like, this is embarrassing. I didn't even.
I don't think it's embarrassing. I think there's not a lot of people that know these kind of things, and especially when you're transplanted out of that kind of or immigrated. Yeah, I mean it's interesting that this is the first. There's a lot of first with this event, but it's creating like you've never been a nationalist or anything, but it's creating this like level of, and I think you can feel across the entire continent or the entire world where everybody's just so saddened about the like the injustice that's happening.
Well, that's exactly why, is because it's exactly that. It's injustice. There was no reason. Like nobody asked for that. Nobody, these are just innocent people who are getting
Their homes
invaded.
taken away,
Yeah, their homes. Yeah,
and
livelihood.
I mean, there's an argument too to be made with like what the United States has done with Afghanistan, Iraq, and all that stuff. That's very true. But I think what's different this time is this is the only time in history that we have a bird's eye view of like a live stream with people on TikTok, Russians and Ukrainians making TikTok videos. You're seeing, and this is wild to me, and I don't know how they can get away with this, but you could see military personnel both on the Ukrainian and Russian side, but let's say the Russians for the perspective for this idea. You see like an entire brigade. I don't know if that's the right word for the amount of people are there, but like the entire company being deployed through the helicopters, and they're just like making selfie videos and posting them on TikTok. There's one I saw of these guys are like they're where parachutes are. And how are they allowed to do that?
I know. They're probably not, but they don't care.
It's like because they can't get caught or something like that.
Or it's like, whatever. It's too late. How are you going to,
It's like, because I could imagine, just put it in perspective. First of all, you could probably compromise and we'd go like, oh, we know where they are, right? But second of all,
right.
It's like, imagine you're a physician and you're operating on somebody and then you're just like making TikTok videos on your phone.
Yeah.
Like you would lose your job. So how are these guys that are supposed to have these classified orders or whatnot?
Or maybe they think like I could like die. This is because it is. I don't care anymore. Yeah
that's hilarious that this is. It's always wild to me that because there's a lot of these military, like even the United States side, like there's a lot of even prison TikToks. Apparently in prison you can have I guess a cell phone that there's a whole like
really
there's a whole like lane on TikTok they're called prison TikToks, and it's I guess some people have their phones and they will create TikTok videos. Yeah, but it's a bunch of dudes that are going like, "Hey, man, there's a bunch of hoes up in here, hit me up." They're doing that kind of stuff. Oh my gosh! I was like, wait, I thought they're supposed to be like punished.
Yeah,
but
they have the full. They're
locked up.
Entertainment.
I get it. So yeah, going back to this is the first time in history that we've actually have a live stream of like what's happening and what people are saying
from the other perspective, right. Or all perspectives. I guess
we never saw like people in Afghanistan or Iraq going, this is what's happening. But then again, in that narrative, you can say who came, what came first, but the way we all understood Afghanistan and Iraq was like there's injustice that was happening there, so the troops were going there to defend the locals.
But we didn't really see like firsthand accounts of things going down.
And there was innocent people dying for sure based off of drone strikes and stuff like that. But in general, the idea was we're going to go there with the correct intentions of get rid of a radical government that's being, and then equipping the people kind of thing. That was the way it was portrayed. But we have never seen even the idea of World War III. That was such a foreign and wildest idea because you go, whoa. We saw it
so far-fetched.
It's so far-fetched. And then now they're like, what would you have to do in case of a nuclear blast, a nuclear attack?
Now it's like, oh my gosh, it's like almost on the horizon.
This is a real thing.
It could happen, yeah.
And here's another interesting thing. So there's a gridlock, right? It's like a complete gridlock of people trying to leave the city, and there's these traffic jams, and like they cannot get past. So boom, they're locked in place, and you can't go to your home. So then you go, well, what do you do, right? Like how do you survive that? And that used to be always considered to be like a doomsday prepper thing that we all laughed at these crazy people.
Oh yeah, the doomsday prep on TV,
burying their buses in the backyard, it was as a bunker, tinfoil hat people. But now it's like a real thing. One of the guys I follow on social media, on Instagram, really good follow. His name is Mike Glover. He's a former, I believe, Green Beret, if not a Navy SEAL. I don't remember which one. But once he got out of the military, anywho, he was special forces. After he came out of the military, he started a company called Fieldcraft Survival. And they basically, it's an educational channel of equipping people, how to handle weapons, how to tourniquet a a wound, how to stabilize things, and he posted a screenshot of somebody from Ukraine messaging him, and they're like, you always show people how to prepare. Where do I hide if I live in an apartment with no basement? And that made him kind of like create this like checklist of like what you need to grab. So he's like
a go bag.
A go bag. He was like, get water, get a small container of bleach to be able to purify that water with droplets. You know, you got to get wool blankets. You got to use things that you can use for bartering. You know, have your identification, but also be ready to dispose of that identification in case you're caught. You know, have carbs that you can ration, you know, cereal bars and bread. Like all these little things that you, in the heat of the moment, somebody says, you have to get out of your house.
You're not going to be thinking about that. Yeah.
You're like, what do I grab?
Scared.
What do I grab? So this should be like a eye-opening thing to a lot of people. And I know it is to me to be like, you need to like plan some things right now, because
have some scenarios you run through. Yeah.
Right. We're not going to live in this, because there's this fear now of, okay, so Russia's being completely crazy and they're making enemies all over the place. But like, just like any kind of escalation of war, there's one guy who does A, and then somebody else meets him at A and raises him to B. And then the other retaliate, and they escalate it until one moment you can't escalate it. And then you have
other countries coming in to help, and then it's being,
And so now it has escalated to somebody going, oh, you did that to us? We're going to drop this bomb on you. And then the other people drop a bomb on them, and then they double up on their bombs. And next thing you know, you just wiped out 50 million people from the face of this world. And so that's a real thing. So I think a lot of people are misunderstanding whatever's happening over there. It doesn't just stop there. If it escalates enough, specifically towards the number 2 superpower of the world, the Russia, and I think Russia's in cahoots with China. And there's a lot of bad things that can happen. And
I know.
If not today, then
like on there.
Well, and so Putin's whole thing
edge of their seats.
And I've said this to you before, but Putin, you know, it's interesting how, being a Russian, how I would see my family, kind of their interpretation of Putin over the years that I've been around them. Because from 7, I wasn't really part of that country, right? We moved to the States in 96 and I was 7 years old. But my parents that's their home, right? So they're really proud of that country, no matter how much, you know, persecution, because they were, you know, for their faith, their, you know, grandfathers or parents or whatever had to go through during the communism era there. To hear them talking about Putin was always like a somewhat of a prideful thing, because because you got to understand that Russia, how like it was left in all these like crumbles after the Soviet Union fell, and then what had happened with Stalin and how many people he killed and starved, that, you know, everybody just lived in poverty, right? Everybody lived, it was basically a very dark time. And corruption. And then when Putin, after Gorbachev was in power, he kind of cleaned up the place. He cleaned up the place, and Moscow was thriving. It became a very like powerhouse, and the police were tidied up, because he was also, you know, Putin was a former intelligence officer, I believe, with the KGB, and he kind of went through all these ranks, and so he cleaned up this, you know, in the middle of like dealing with like oligarchs, which is just businessmen who have political influence, and any kind of mobsters, and in the middle of all that, he kind of created order. And so when everything that I remember hearing, I remember my parents kind of going like, yeah, he's really cleaning up the area, and, you know, you kind of become proud.
But you don't know how he cleaned it up.
Well, so let's, you know, and you know, people always have to understand that every country has their own dirt that we don't see of how things are happening, right?
But obviously, your parents saw the one side
and they started
of it.
becoming more proud, and and then something like this happened. Well, actually, what ended up happening is that whole invasion of Crimea in 2014, and then you kind of go, whoa, and that was during the Sochi Olympics, right? So like Russia was hosting, and so all of a sudden they invade Crimea, and people are just kind of like, whoa, what's going on? And then somehow it got lost. Like nobody really, you know. In fact, you actually heard a different narrative. And I'm like, whoa, 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 what kind of narrative are you guys talking about? Because they were so ride or die for Putin.
Mm-hmm.
And then something like this happens, and I haven't spoken to my parents about this, but I wouldn't be surprised if I had family members that were like, no, it's, Putin, he's, the media
Ukraine
spinning a different
started it,
story.
yeah.
Something like that. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not putting words in anybody's mouth, but, it's just like the time that we live in right now, whether it's vaccinations or not, like depending what news source you're listening to, certain people have a different opinion of A, B, and C.
Yep.
And they say A is wrong because they're only hearing this side of story, or B is wrong because, I mean, even with Rogan, right? They're like, you listen to one news broadcasting station, and they're like, well, it's because, he's doing whatever. And then the other side is like, no, he's practicing free speech. So it's just a matter of where are you getting your information and how are you interpreting personally that information.
Right. Are you just taking it all in as like fact, or are you like doing your research? And
yeah, it's just because apparently there's narratives on every
always,
side, right?
Always.
But the thing with Ukraine, it's so wild that they're even putting out like propaganda stuff where they're
Russia
saying,
is?
yeah, like that Ukraine is surrendering their weapons and putting it down, and then the president, or what do they call it, the prime minister, he creates a video, like a TikTok video. He goes, hey, there's a bunch of misinformation. We're not laying anything down. We're defending our country.
Yeah. And that's what I do love about social media. There's negatives, but the positive right now is you can kind of set the record straight when somebody's, trying to say something. You're like, wait, I'm right here. Like, this is me, So I think in this instance, social media has kind of brought people together and maybe brought more awareness of exactly what's going on, because people are there shooting videos, not like, it's not filtered through media or anything.
It's not. Nope.
It's like, I'm right here. This is my apartment. Look what that, look what is that? The shell from like a missile or what was it? Was like shot through somebody's apartment. There's like a picture of it on.
Yeah, and there's people, citizens that are confronting military personnel, and they go, "Hey, get out of our land! Like, this is our home." And it's so sad because you actually see real people trying to stand up.
It's not just like this, far-fetched idea where somebody's, you hear it through the grapevine, like you hear your parents telling you, and then like, this is what's happening. It almost seems like this like abstract, like, oh, okay, it's happening, but when you're seeing it firsthand, it's so much more devastating, and it's just heartbreaking. I think that's why it makes me emotional, is because I'm seeing it like happening versus just hearing about it happening.
Unfortunately, but I have a feeling of like what's going to play out. And I think what's going to playing out is, more and more invasion, right? Getting closer. And I think that escalation of action is going to be taken, and more countries are going to get involved and all that stuff. But I guess what I'm wondering more than that is, how long does this last? Because every war has never really been like, oh, here's the month of
couple days,
here's a month of February and that's it. Like, no, it's
gonna be a long
couple
time
of years. It's a couple of years, and you kind of wonder how much is going to escalate.
What are these people that live there gonna do? Yeah.
And so we were talking about how like the resources, your parents are sending money to these people at this church that they started, and you said they never really asked for money or help before, and it's
people are scared,
right? And so they're asking for these resources. But my big question is, so right now, I'm sure the area is like a ghost town, right? People are hiding, everything's closed. So let's say you send, $100,000. Where do you go and spend that money for water and food and, supplies? Everything's closed. So
do you think everything's closed, or the cities surrounding that haven't been as affected? Do you think they're open, or do you think it's all shut down?
Oh, great question. I think it only makes sense that Kiev everything's closed.
Definitely the city of Kiev.
I think the surrounding areas are open, and I wouldn't be surprised if there are a lot of brave people who are running supplies into Kiev. You know what I mean? Which
from that,
for sure. Yeah. I mean, that'd have to happen. It's such a patriotic country, so I'd imagine people are like. But I don't know how
they're figuring ways.
Right. I don't know how they would get
resources.
back out of there, right? So let's say they're driving to Kiev. How do you get back without people jumping 20 people on your car trying to escape as well in the middle of a gridlock?
Right.
So there's a lot of questioning there.
Yeah.
But
and I think it's happened just so recently. That's exactly what people are trying to figure out is how do we do this probably.
Right. Well, today is what? So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Today's Monday. So that's 5 days now.
Yeah.
5 days now.
Yeah.
We were talking about this also yesterday. Clearly, if you guys listening, we've given it a few ideas about the topic. But I mean, everybody's talking about it, and it's hard not to keep talking about it. I don't and not to say like, well, let's find the bright side of this. There's no bright side on this, but I do. What I love is in the midst of this kind of stuff, right? Because Ukraine's such an underdog that everybody's rooting for it. And it's such a beautiful thing. They didn't do anything.
They didn't do anything to deserve this.
And you can have an argument where they're apparently like former presidents are like saying that they didn't want to support Ukraine because they're a corrupt country. But listen, any country that's new and comes from a very dark history, there's going to be a bunch of corruption there. That's just there, right? You're trying to
any country.
you're trying to bring order in something that had a lot of chaos before.
Yeah.
It's just to what level, right? And so it's wild for me. It's really cool to see in such a small, underrated country that has like a fourth or maybe a third of Russia's equipment.
Their resources
to see these like exceptional human beings. So the first one is like the Zelensky, the prime minister, right? Their president. He like
I think his name is
Vladimir Zelensky.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was offered, you were telling me that he was offered like an evacuation. And he said what?
He said, I don't need a ride. I need ammunition. Which is like, that is a bold statement and amazing.
Super cool. Put a bulletproof vest on and a hat and went in the trenches with the soldiers. Really admirable. Admirable. And then there's these really cool, special forces operators. There's one guy, he's called the Ukrainian Reaper. And apparently he's already tallied up like 30 kills in the midst of all this. And he's kind of in the background. And then there's
Is he a military?
Yes, he's infantry. And then there is, they're calling him, he's an Air Force pilot. I think he's on the, what does he fly? I don't remember what he flies, but they're calling him the Ghost of Kiev. And apparently he took down like 5 Russian fighter jets. And then he went missing for like 5 hours, and everybody thought he was shut down. And then he came back. So they said like, this is a real life Avenger.
This is
the real life Avenger.
He's back.
So it's so cool to see like these heroic 1%ers
rise.
In the midst of all this kind of stuff. So
through it all,
kind of it encourages you to kind of keep rooting and I don't know, how do you say, hope for the best, because what is the best, right?
And
so
like, what can you do? As one individual,
and so it's like, what kind of resources do I give, and where do I even send it? Because unlike a lot of things, the United States has the Red Cross, so you give to the Red Cross. Well, where do you give in Ukraine for a group of people to go help? I'm sure after everything's all done and said, there going to be organizations that are going and like, hey, we're going to help rebuild. I get that. But like right now, most of the people are like private people who are like, here's my Venmo account, send me some money,
Yeah. It's just crazy because it's really sad also, because I've heard already that people are taking advantage and scamming in the midst of this, which it just is so sad that in this like heartbreaking time, there's still people thinking about their own selfish, wants.
Well, what do you mean by that? Oh, scamming
when
people.
They go like, hey, can you transfer this? I need this. But then they probably not even living in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's you have to be just careful where you're donating your money. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw somebody posted, and I think that was kind of pretty clever. Well, not clever in a dark way, but clever of a creative way to help. They were saying like, go. I'm trying to give them credit. Who was this that came up with this? I think it was Mandy from Vintage Revivals. I think it was her, but she was saying how go on to Etsy and like filter. I was just gonna say that. Filter like Ukrainian buyers and then buy from them.
Yeah, and you're not gonna receive it because they can't ship anything.
Exactly.
But just send them the money.
Yeah. And I thought that was
so,
really
yeah.
clever.
I actually thought of that myself because I follow an Etsy shop that's based out of Ukraine, Kiev, and she, you know, posted like, I'm so sorry, like none of my orders are going to go out, obviously. You know, thank you so much for being patient, whatever. And so I'm like, I thought about that too. I'm like, well, I'm sure you could still just send the money and buy something. Yeah. Knowing that you won't get it, but.
You know what we should do? I wonder if what we can do is like do a like a merch thing where all the proceeds just go to Ukraine.
Yeah.
Like just run it for a period of time, and then just take all the money and just send it over. When once we're figuring out like where to send it, and I think it's just a way for people to
be able to support.
Just be able to support. You know, it's and I don't. It's not for me. Just them going like, where do I send? And you're like, no, just buy a shirt. We'll send the money over there. You know.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more legitimate because you're connected to the people.
Yeah. I mean, my mom was sending money directly to the church that needed resources to be able to help the people that are trying to find refuge. Yeah. So I'm just sending her the money. But even if we could find, because I know there are still legitimate organizations that I've seen people post that you can send to that will aid.
Maybe we'll just do something like that.
Yeah.
Oh man, well, you know,
it's heavy,
but
I think it needs to be talked about, and it's our world right now.
Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, I think more and more people, it's really great to see different states in the United States, you know, protesting. And I don't know, you know, when you live in the United States, protesting will do something. I don't know necessarily protesting does anything in a country like Russia that comes from a communist regime.
I think they're getting in trouble, big trouble for protesting.
People get killed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People, and there's nothing, you can't protest the killing that happened. You know what I mean? There's people who, the military personnel.
It's a little bit different there.
The military personnel, you disobey orders in the United States Army, you get dishonorable discharge and you go to military police and all that stuff, right? Over there, you get killed. The amount of, like, I remember even just Stalin, the amount of fear that he raised when orders weren't executed, that he would execute these people, the soldiers, in front of their fellow soldiers. You know?
Insane.
So
fear.
So I don't know how far protesting does in a post-communist regime. And I know, you know, again, back to 2014, Putin had that paper where he wrote, you know, it's a 9-page paper, and he's saying how the biggest downfall of the 20th century is the fall of communism. Like, he is trying to reclaim the glory days.
Which is like, this
and
was
so
happening.
You can protest all you want. He's not hearing it.
Oh, yeah.
Not hearing it.
There's nothing,
But
people are doing it.
People are supporting.
Because it's like, what can they do?
Right.
You know, the people who are living there that don't agree with what he's doing.
Yeah. All right, folks. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. It was heavy, but
our hearts go out to everybody in Ukraine.
And we'll try to come up with something, either do the merch launch for them, and then maybe Irina will come up with a couple of 3 different organizations or something like that, or Etsy, popular Etsy accounts that maybe they could send to. But we'll figure out something, and just watch us on the podcast or social media podcast. Not social media. The podcast is Instagram, so I think we'll share some stuff there, and we'll definitely share it on our private accounts as well. Cool. Thanks, guys. Love you. Bye.
Bye.